Welcome back to the Big Rant Show. Thank you for joining me. Well, it happened again. Yet another mass shooting, yet again in Texas. When's it going to stop? The picture you see here is a picture of a memorial set up in Allen, Texas, after a gunman who was apparently a Nazi sympathizer jumped out of his car with an AR-15 type rifle and immediately started firing. We don't know why this loser did this. What we do know is the horrific toll it has taken on the community. At least 2 children under the age of 10, one as young as 5, was murdered in this shooting spree. At least 2 of the 8 people killed were children. This is a outlet mall where people from all over the DFW area come to do shopping and just get away from home. I had a friend of mine on Facebook just yesterday talk about how they were supposed to be there at that time, around the time the shooting took place. But the only reason they didn't go is they were tired. And so they decided to stay home and rest instead. If they had gone, they would have been one of the victims. Or at least one of the ones running for their lives. When is it going to stop, America? What does it take? How many more of these does it take? Now, I'm not going to sit here and rant and scream, because it's beyond that. That marked the 199th mass shooting in America since January 1st. The leading cause of death in children is now guns. But we did nothing after 20 kids were gunned down at Sandy Hook. We're not really doing anything now since Uvalde. We're literally just letting it happen and sitting idly by doing nothing about it. How is it we keep saying we've done everything we can, but we've never lifted a finger to actually help? How is that possible? It's absolutely horrific what is happening to this country. And whether or not he was directly related to a neo-Nazi group or not, according to law enforcement, there was a number of connections to neo-Nazi groups. Whether he was directly affiliated or just a sympathizer of the movement. I saw on Twitter somebody was like, how could this guy possibly be a white supremacist or connected to neo-Nazis? They're like, after all, he's Hispanic. But the thing is, these Nazi type groups, the Proud Boys and such, they have people of different races in their ranks. So they'll be able to appease the masses, right? To not look like they're so bad. One thing I remember from history class is there were a small number of Jewish people that helped the Nazi regime early on in Nazi Germany. Because they don't just spew hate for races, right? They spew hate about everybody else that's not them. Stringent attacks, or beliefs against the LGBTQ community. Until and against others that may be immigrating into the country. I really, I don't know. I really don't know what we do from here, where we go from here. Because I'm not one that supports the ownership of guns, but I do believe there's a way that we can minimize these number of attacks and still maintain people's basic rights to own a firearm. I don't believe that people should have access to AR-15s and other assault rifles. I just don't think it should be a thing. I don't think extended magazines should be a thing. I also believe there should be more stringent psychological and other background checks. This guy was discharged from the military reportedly because he had mental health problems that made him undesirable in the military. So he was known to have psychological problems so bad that the military told him to go home. Yet he was allowed to was able to qualify for owning an AR-15, was able to qualify as being a security guard that carried a firearm before he quit in like 2021. So what do we do, America? Do we just sit here and let more children die? Do we just sit around twiddling our thumbs saying, hey, it's just America, just how it is? There's nothing we can do about it. We've done everything we can without lifting a finger. I'm not saying we can end all gun violence because there's always going to be that one bad person, right? But we're well over 100 or well over 200 now, I'm sure. But we're just under 200 at number 199 on Saturday afternoon in Allen, Texas. A police officer who was called by his son, who was hiding people I believe, in the H&M store, got a phone call from his son he didn't want. He rushed to the scene and he found a woman in the bushes. and the anguish on his face was clear. Because he said he checked for a pulse and turned her over and her face was gone. This wasn't some, young rookie who hadn't seen violence before. This was a military veteran who had seen wartime, at least from the reports I've seen, and he was a police officer. He said he'd never seen anything like this before. Somebody that saw carnage on a battlefield had never seen anything like this before. Let that sink in. Somebody who saw the horrors of war said he had never seen something this brutal before. Where does that leave us? That leaves us with one thing for sure, that these weapons of war are far more dangerous than even the weapons they're using. Yet we're allowing them on our streets. As I said in one of my other videos, I have seen some of the pictures of what these AR-15 platform firearms do to children. It's absolutely it's horrific. And I don't tell you these things to scare people or to disgust people. But I think if we don't talk about the real situation, I don't think we're ever going to find a solution. I really don't know where we go. People say they want their gun rights. Okay. But is there not a happy medium we can find somewhere? Is there not something we could do to lessen the chances of people being gunned down just for having a good afternoon? Because one of these days it's going to happen to somebody you know, or it's going to happen to you. We need to do something to stop the next one. Like I said, we can't end all gun violence or all instances of evil. But like a former president once said, we may not be able to stop all acts of violence, but could we start with just one? I'll see you down the road.